Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Anthony with Facilitate the Process. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. Usually we bring you 2 to 3 minute different sections of videos for lessons and things like that. But what we're going to talk about today is validation. And this video is going to be about 31 minutes or so. And it's pretty much, some tips and some different tricks. And we're talking about validation in reference to maybe your personal life, professional life. We even have some parts where we talk about kids and them trying to get validation for certain things. So there are some tips here that you can use if you choose to. Once again, everything that we provide is for information and educational purposes. So you can choose to use them if you would like to. We're having a little bit of a problem with the website's been up and down through no fault of our own, but the website is facilitatetheprocess.com. And if need be, if you're as old as I am, you remember when it used to be called the pound sign. So you can use hashtag facilitate the process, hashtag facilitate the process, and you'll see various items that we've posted and different articles and things like that online through the various social media areas. So sit back, take some notes, and hopefully some of this will be useful to you in whatever you're doing within your career. But I also, what we try to do is we always talk about facilitating the process. And basically what that means is we have to teach, talk, show you, get feedback on the different items and stuff that we're trying to put out there for you before you can try to trust the process. So, you always hear that trust the process, and that's fine. But somewhere before trusting the process, it has to be facilitated for an understanding and some feedback. So keep that in mind as you watch this and as you watch anything that we put out. Is we're trying to put this out for you. We're looking for some feedback. And even if you're not giving us feedback, that you're taking some of this information and you're using it in your daily life, that's part of you facilitating it. And then after you start to facilitate it, you definitely will be able to trust whatever those processes that come afterwards. So sit back and enjoy.
3 immediate actions which halt your need to be validated. Change isn't always easy. Old behaviors linger for longer than we'd like, especially when we're still living the same life we used to. It's hard to remember doing things a new way when you're still indulging in the same routines and hanging out with the people you always have. The need for validations is one of those things which can be hard to get past sometimes. You know it's not good for you, and you might even be pretty good at self-validation instead. But still, you slip up from time to time. You start saying yes to every project people pass your way, or you find yourself agreeing with people around you on things you really feel differently about, but are too shy to speak up about. So, what do? First, try not to let it faze you. Everyone messes up from time to time, especially when trying something new. Next, try these 3 alternative actions, which halt your need to be validated in its tracks. Ask what's really going on. What's happening right now which is tripping you up? Are you trying to impress a specific person? Or are you simply falling into an old pattern? Understanding what's at the root of your need for validation will help you address the problem and derail the old behavior you're trying to squelch. Have an honest conversation. You're expecting another person to validate you. Instead of jumping to impress them, try talking to them about how you're feeling. Be honest about your fears and be open about what you're thinking. It could be you're getting worried about saying no to something or expressing a different opinion from the rest. And it's not as big of a deal as you've been making it out to be. Sure, it's scary to be a little vulnerable, but you'll feel so much better in the long run. Change the dialogue. Finally, you were hoping someone else would validate you. Wouldn't it feel much better if you could validate yourself? Check your self-talk for negativity and instead reword what you've been telling yourself into something more positive. Remind yourself of all the great things you've done and the talents you have. Reassure yourself it's normal to feel whatever emotion you happen to be feeling, if only because it's your emotion. The best way to derail your old behaviors is to adopt new ones to replace them. By keeping these techniques in your toolkit, you will always have a more positive alternative to validation seeking. You'll also start discovering just how amazing you really are. 3 reasons kids seek out extra validation and what to do about it. When you have children, you'll notice they seem to need a lot of validation. This can be considered part of the growing process. As they explore the world, it's good to receive reassurance that they're doing well and their efforts are seen. Occasionally, though, you'll find your children might go through periods where they seek more validation than normal. What's with that? Have they been getting too much validation lately? Sometimes we get a little overeager in our praise. While it's natural to be excited about your child's accomplishments, making a really big deal out of every one can lead to unhealthy expectations. When this happens, the child will build up an expectation they need to be validated whenever they do anything. How can you help? Try easing back a little. Choose your moments to give over-the-top praise carefully. The rest of the time, a hug or a quiet word of praise is sufficient. Has something gone wrong recently? If your child put a lot of effort into something and fell flat, they might be feeling a little uncertain right now. When this happens, they seek your praise as reassurance, hoping you'll give them back whatever they lost in their failure. How can you help? Talk to them about what happened. Let them know everyone sometimes fails, and remind them what's important is they tried hard. Show them how they have already learned from the experience and talk about trying again. What have you been doing? Kids will often seek attention when they feel like they don't have yours. Is it possible you've been extra busy lately or spending too much time on your phone when the kids were around? You might not think so, but try to see yourself through their eyes. How can you help? Instead of validation, what your child needs is for you to be there in the moment with them. You don't necessarily need to go and arrange special time with your child. Instead, focus on giving your child more of your undivided attention. How about a no phone rule at dinner, or making a point of setting aside the tech when they're talking to you so they know you're really listening? While this doesn't begin to represent every instance your child might be seeking extra validation, it should at least give you some ideas about unraveling what's going on when they do. The key to handling any situation is the same. Dig a little deeper to understand why your child is feeling insecure and address this instead. You'll both feel better about it. 4 actions which will break the validation habit at work. We all fall into behavior patterns that make our life easier. Validation is one of those things which is especially rewarding. After all, who doesn't want to know they fit in or how much their contributions are appreciated? This is especially true at work. The problem is, validation seeking has its drawbacks. Most of the behaviors associated with this kind of attention getting will leave you feeling overworked, insecure, and otherwise uncertain. It's hard to feel confident without an audience's applause to let you know you're doing okay. Even worse is how your coworkers react to validation. Most of them know what you're doing, mostly because they're doing it too, and very few appreciate it. It certainly won't move you towards promotion anytime soon. To break this cycle and to feel more confident, why not try any of these actions to help you get ahead instead? Embrace disaster. Okay, things sometimes go wrong. This can be expected. But the validation seeker will likely turn tail and run the moment things blow up, mostly because they don't want to be associated with failure. To break this pattern, hold your ground. Acknowledge your part in what went wrong and show a willingness to learn, and even more important, to try again. This shows leadership and responsibility. Show you can grow. Validation seekers will pretend to know everything to seem impressive. Isn't it better, though, to admit when you don't know something and ask for guidance instead? This willingness to be taught new things, embrace change, and accept mentorship all show a growth mindset that looks good in the long run. Show what you're made of. The validation seeker will want to show how agreeable they are with those over them, which means an extra effort not to rock the boat or question established practices. While this mindset is generally valued because it makes you a strong worker, it doesn't leave room for growth. Isn't it better to speak up when you see a better way or offer an innovative and creative solution? The ability to think outside the box makes you really stand out from the rest. Be a mentor. When you're seeking validation, it's common to want to make sure the world sees your shine. Mentors, though, help others to reach their full potential. Imagine how good it feels to see someone you've guided through the process truly succeed. Who needs validation when you have this? All in all, the best part of losing the idea of needing to be validated is how much it gives you room to grow and realize your own potential. You start to see your own value, which is more important than what anyone else could ever think. 4 steps which free you from the need for validation. Why do we need to be told who we are? What is it about the opinion of others which is so powerful we stop listening to ourselves and believe the words of strangers over our own self-knowledge? Validation is a funny sort of thing. We think we need it, but deep inside, we really don't. After all, we know who we are and what we're capable of. Validation, though, is an outgrowth of doubt, which usually only gets worse the more we try to seek out the attention of others, hoping they can tell us who we are. It sounds like a crazy cycle, doesn't it? Let's get off this merry-go-round and take steps to free us from chasing this kind of acknowledgement once and for all. Try this instead and see how it feels. Step back from the question. What are you really asking for from the other person? Before you go there, take a moment to understand the root cause. What are you needing right now? Why do you feel like you're not getting it? How can you find this for yourself without having to depend on someone else, who, more often than not, is going to let you down anyway? People aren't mind readers, after all. Take action steps. Once you know the root, it's time to do something about it. If you're dealing with a lot of negative self-talk, start planning to put more positive words in your head. Rephrase what you're saying about yourself. Make a rule where negativity isn't allowed under any circumstances. Do what you need to make the change. This holds true for anything which is holding you back. Enlist assistance. Sometimes we can't do these steps alone. Talk to a friend about what you're feeling, or talk to the person you want validation from about your experiences. Be honest with them about your need for their approval and why you feel like you don't have it. You might be surprised at how they respond. If this isn't enough, try talking to a counselor or other mental health professional for added assistance. Sometimes we all need a little help in getting to the heart of the matter. Express your confidence. If you're not feeling it just yet, make a point to stand a little straighter. Say out loud, "I believe in myself." Make a list of all the things you do well and celebrate your accomplishments. Let the world see how amazing you are. Once you've shaken the validation-seeking behavior once and for all, you'll be amazed at what a difference it makes. Finally, you can be free to be yourself. You can take pride in who you are and what you do. And why wouldn't you? You're sharing with the world your truest and best version of yourself. 4 ways to let go of your need to be validated once and for all. How sure are you of yourself? It's hard to feel confident all the time. Sometimes you really just need to know you're doing okay. Everything will be all right. However, reassuring yourself can be hard, especially when considering past history, which might have left behind unpleasant baggage. Isn't it just a whole lot easier to find validation from someone else? Sure you can. Validation is a fairly simple fix. Most people don't mind handing out a compliment or two, especially if they know and like you already. The problem is, this kind of validation is rarely satisfying. The effects never last near long enough. With this in mind, maybe it's time to let go of validation once and for all. Instead, try embracing just how wonderful you are through these simple techniques. Understand your true need. Just what are you really seeking out right now? For example, while you might be looking for a compliment on your new haircut, what you're really wanting to know is if you're attractive. Perhaps you're even hoping to catch the eye of someone special. Delve deep and ask the hard questions about what's behind your current need. Once you know this, see if you can discover a more satisfying solution to the problem. In this example, it might be better to remind yourself of what you like about yourself and what makes you outstanding already. Step back from quicksand. The minute you start trying to please those around you to be liked, you're stepping into a miry wasteland. You'll soon discover you can never impress someone just once. You'll always be trying to outdo yourself. Recognize when you're falling into this trap and remind yourself it's better to be liked for who you are, not how well you can fit someone else's ridiculous standards. Be true to yourself. Being agreeable to what other people have to say is not only another way to be liked, it also compromises what you believe in. Take pause now before speaking. Consider what you were about to say. Was this you talking or them? You might want to reconsider your words. It is better to be honest about how you feel, or, if need be, stay silent rather than compromise your ideals. Show your individuality. Finally, just be you. Speak your mind, be authentic, and step out in confidence. Quit second-guessing yourself, and instead live harmoniously with your own beliefs. Remember, never compromise who you are for the sake of flattery or acceptance. Instead, look to yourself and see instead just how wonderful you already are. 5 benefits to life without validation. How would you like more time in the day? If you're looking to get things done and free up more time for the fun stuff in life, then all you need to do is make one simple change in your life. Let go of your need for validation. Validation costs us all time and energy. Even now, think back over your day. How many times were you concerned about how someone else thought about you? How did this affect your actions? Let's face it, we put a lot of effort into fitting in, being liked, and trying to make a good impression. Now, imagine what happens when you accept you're pretty fantastic already and don't need others to tell you so. What if you could just be yourself and not worry about the rest? Consider these benefits to life without validation. You don't have to jump through hoops. How often have you contorted your thoughts, beliefs, ideas, and opinions to fit better with those around you, all just so others would think well of you? When you stop searching for validation, you can relax and be who you are. You're no longer fenced in. When you're looking for validation from others, there are certain invisible boundaries we have to maintain. For example, we might find ourselves holding back from forming real friendships at work because we're too busy trying to impress those around us. You don't have to rehearse your life. No more running lines of dialogue through your head to test it out before saying it. Imagine if you can just act naturally and even react naturally without having to ask yourself if you're being too over the top. You don't have to play a part. Too often, when we're looking for people to notice us, we wear a mask we hide behind so no one can ever see our real selves. We try to be more put together, look like we're accomplishing more, and never mess up. These false personas can feel pretty oppressive, especially when things aren't going as well as you make them out to be. Rather than fake success, wouldn't it be nice to be your real self, as messy as it is sometimes? You don't have to do other people's work. How often have you said yes to doing a favor for someone else because you were worried they wouldn't like you or think well of you if you said no? Now, imagine how much nicer it would be to pick and choose what you want to do instead. Dropping the need for validation certainly changes things, doesn't it? So, consider these things the next time you think about fishing for a compliment or putting yourself out there to get attention. Try doing things your way instead and enjoy what happens next. 5 positive traits you develop when you stop seeking validation. How would you like to be a better person? If you spend time reading self-help articles, you probably think most change comes from doing something new. Today, you're going to try something different. Rather than starting a whole new regimen or adopting a new behavior, you're going to develop 5 positive traits, all by stopping something you've been doing all your life. From the time we're small, we learn validation feels good. We seek it out, looking for understanding, acceptance, and inner peace. We don't realize just how much this constant search for positive attention is holding us back. Consider these 5 things which happen when you stop looking outside yourself for validation. You see a more diverse world. Consider this. Everyone really doesn't have to agree with each other after all. Instead of seeking validation by going along with what those around you are thinking or doing, maybe you can set a new trend by expressing who you are. Encourage those around you to likewise speak up and be their own people. Imagine how much nicer the world would be if we all could do this. You're more certain of things. When we rely on other people to tell us if we're doing things right or not, we can get mixed messages. Someone likes our work, while someone else might not. Now imagine this. If validation doesn't matter, you know the only opinion which truly matters is yours. This certainly clears out the confusion. You take better care of yourself. It's hard to put forward your needs when you're too busy seeing to the needs of others or rushing about trying to appease those around you. These are the traits that lead to overwork and exhaustion. When you quit seeking validation, you can step back when you need to and get proper rest. You'll also find it easier to express when you need a break or to get something to eat. You become a calmer person. There's certainly a lot less stress if you don't have to impress everyone around you all the time. With all the pressure off, you can relax into just being yourself. You exude confidence. Finally, you don't need anyone else to inform you of your worth when you drop validation. You already know how amazing you are. When you carry this knowledge with you, you can't help but walk a little taller. This is you at your best, and the world knows it. 5 ways the need for validation drives other people away. You would think compliments would make other people like you. And everyone loves when people agree with them, right? When we look for validation, we tend to practice certain behaviors. After all, we're looking for others to let us know we belong. We want to matter and be seen for what we do. We feel reassured when we're told we're doing well. Unfortunately, we aren't exactly building relationships when we press for these things. If anything, we might be burning a few bridges instead. Why? No one knows the real you. If you're trying to blend with the crowd and not stand out, you lose your individuality and what makes you uniquely special. No one has any idea about the quirky way you do things or the marvelous things you have to say. They don't see what you believe in and what you're passionate about. Instead, you look just like everyone else, buttoned down and boring. People think you're being fake. When you're not acting in authentic ways, others quickly pick up on it. It shows in how you agree about absolutely everything. It's there in the phony compliments and how you switch sides at the drop of a hat. While you might think you're being agreeable or even flattering, what they see is someone without personal integrity who isn't worth their time or trust. You seem irresponsible. If you're never to blame for anything, but instead are pointing out how others got it wrong, so you look better, you'll quickly find people steering clear of you. First, it's because no one wants to be the next victim of the blame game you're playing. Second, it looks like you can't take responsibility for your own actions. Neither option is particularly attractive. You're a little scary. Sometimes the only way to build yourself is to tear others down. If this is your game, then gossip and drama are a way of life for you. While people might flock to hear the latest and most juicy tidbits, no one will want to get particularly close in case the next feature story you have to share is all about them. It's no wonder they steer clear. You come off as being self-centered. Validation seeking requires others to be paying attention to you. Generally, this is at the expense of others. Seriously, how can you be expected to have time for other people's problems when you need to be the focus right now? This feels like a lack of empathy and can even seem narcissistic. The best solution? Be real. Authenticity wins points every time. Also, make a point to be more about the other person than yourself. As for validation, you don't need it, at least not from anyone else. Instead, take the time to understand your own value, and in the end, these things will draw people to you and create lasting friendships. 6 reasons you need to stop looking for validation at work. Good job! We all love getting validation. A kind word or show of support can be especially rewarding at work. Looking for validation, though, is a bit more complicated. While accolades are wonderful when they're given out organically, hunting for ways to get them can only hurt you and even hold you back. Consider these factors. You look too much like you're sucking up. Everyone knows when you're trying to make the boss like you by agreeing with everything they say. This includes your boss. While some employers or managers might feel flattered by the attention, for the most part, it just doesn't say much about your character. You're better off relaxing and just being yourself. After all, it's you they hired, not some clone of themselves. You show a lack of confidence. If you're constantly checking to see if you're doing well, those around you are going to start thinking you don't know what you're doing. Over time, this might lead to fewer opportunities and even jeopardize your job. Instead, remind yourself you did your best and trust your boss to tell you if you're not doing okay. Fakes tend to be found out. So you pretended to know what you were doing, so no one would find out you were less than capable in some area. Unless you're a super quick study, this kind of thing is only going to come back to bite you. Sooner or later, you're going to trip up. Now, you've not only shown your ignorance, but a distinct lack of integrity as well. You would have been better off to admit your lack of knowledge and showed an eagerness to learn instead. You wind up with too much on your plate. If you're never saying no because you're hoping to look impressive, you're going to land yourself in trouble fairly fast. Too many deadlines, too much work will wear you down, leaving you exhausted and stressed. They're also a sure recipe for disaster as things start slipping past and deadlines are missed. You do better to say no on occasion and do a stellar job with what you have. It shows poor leadership. If you hope to deflect disaster by pushing the blame onto those around you, hoping you'll still come out looking good, think again. A lack of responsibility never goes well and is a sure sign you're not management material. It's far better to step up and accept the blame and show a willingness to learn from the experience instead. You lose allies. If you're talking down to those around you, hoping to make yourself look better, you're only going to be seen as someone who can't be trusted. Forget networking or finding a mentor. Your better option? Build up those around you. That's the key to forging successful relationships. 10 questions to ask to determine if validation is hurting your relationship. It's a wonderful thing to enjoy deep friendships or the company of those we love. Sometimes, though, we can become uncertain about our relationships. We think we see the other person pulling away. We consider something we've done in the past that makes it impossible for someone else to love us. Whatever the cause, we start seeking validation, needing reassurance from the other person to know everything is okay. What if this is the worst thing you can do? Sometimes our need for validation can do more harm than good. What you might not realize is just how unconscious a need for validation can be. Consider these questions. Have you been agreeing to outings or activities you have no interest in without speaking up about how you feel? Do you post about your relationship problems online, hoping to get likes and comments that support your perspective? Are you spending a lot of time stressing about looking or acting right for the other person because you're fairly sure they wouldn't like the real you? Do you hold back from offering opinions that are different from theirs to keep them from leaving you? Do you put up with bad behavior from the other person rather than risk ending the relationship? Do you give the other person a lot of compliments, hoping they'll like you more? Do you share stories about your job or life that make you the hero and put down others? Do you bend over backwards to keep the kids calm, the house perfect, and life running smoothly to give the appearance of having it all together? Do you never say no when your significant other dumps their share of the household chores on you? Do you spend ages trying to look perfect before the two of you can go out? While everyone can say yes to each of these at one point or another, the real question is, how often do these things come up? If you're consistently doing these things repeatedly, you're very likely caught up in the habit of seeking the approval of others. The problem is, it isn't healthy to forever drown your own needs, remaking yourself again and again. It also shows a distinct lack of trust in the other person, which is what will sink your relationship faster than anything else. Our partners need to be able to like us for who we are. That's it. If they don't, they only like a false version of you that doesn't even exist. What's even worse is how little you wind up liking yourself when you do these things, building poor self-esteem and, over time, resentment toward the other person. This is why it's so important to squelch behavior that seeks out validation in your relationships. You both deserve better.